People of the Purple Butterfly here, otherwise known as People7 on Twitter and YouTube, people elsewhere on the internet. My soaps are located at PurpleButterfly-soaps.myshopify.com, and my blog is located at PurpleButterfly-people.blogspot.com. And I'm still working on the full lace pink wig, and I thought I'd just take you with me while I ventilate. Yep. This is synthetic hair, specifically made for crochet braids. So the root is actually in the middle, which works out because that way I could just fold it in half and keep going. With human hair, you only fold down 2 inches, so that way the returns don't snag, because, well, that came up today, so I'm just going to explain it to you. Human hair is composed of cuticles that look like scales. So one hangs on top of the other, and they flow in one direction. So say for instance I go like this, my hair is smooth. Now if I try to go back the other direction, there's resistance, and that causes tangling. So when you're ventilating with human hair and you fold that hair in half, that little part right there, the short ends, those are the returns. The 2 inches minimizes any of the resistance you would get when one strand of hair meets the other when it's in Remy form. Now, synthetic hair, you just fold in half and ventilate, and it's not going to tangle against each other, because synthetic hair feels the same regardless of which direction you go in. There's no cuticle. Okay, you can actually buy human hair that has no cuticle, but is drastically expensive, just the process it takes to remove the cuticle. Anyway, I'm using a Korean hook in size 1-2, I believe it is. Hold on, let me peek. Yeah, the 1-2. I still have my German needle and my Asian needle. They have different effects. They do different things. So, yeah. For this part of the wig, I want to pick up 1 to 2 strands of hair, and for this part it's going to be 1 to 1, and on the sides I might do, in the middle I might do 3 to 4. So a needle that, you know, has the sizes is beneficial. The German hook only has 1 size, and the Asian hook, I think that's a 3. I kind of forgot, and I don't know what I did with the rest of them, so I just bought more needles, so, you know, and a new holder, so, yeah. In the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and let you see my process. And this is like the first time I'm not wearing gloves to do it, so, yeah. Which means if my hair snags, the hair snags my hand or my fingernails, it's just gonna snag it. And yes, this is strand by strand, 1 to 2 hairs at a time. And I usually pull it out the way. A lot of ventilators, with every strand that they ventilate, they smooth it down to reestablish the tension between the knot and the hair, you know, but I don't do that. I ventilate a certain amount of hair and then I smooth it all down at the same time, and it does the same thing. It just reduces the time it takes to smooth each individual section. I usually watch videos of ventilation or study my closer classes or listen to music or watch videos while I do this. And a lot of people work in squares or patterns or sections. I don't do that much. It's like I worked in this section, I worked the hairline, I did a little spot here, a little spot here, and then I just go back and forth in rows. Instead of vertical or horizontal, I do the diagonal, so that way when the hair falls, it falls kind of like box braids in a bricklaying pattern. That's really hard to see since these are very small sections of, you know, on the grid of the cap. But when you comb it, it gives it a more natural appearance that way. And a lot of times I just ventilate and the hair be going every which direction until I brush it. And then I always brush it, because, especially with synthetic hair, because it will tangle up really, really easily if I don't. And every now and then I accidentally do a split knot, which is fine. It just means one strand to go this way, one strand to go that way, but when you smooth it out, it'll still lay flat. Split knots are usually done on purpose right at the hairline, you know, in the section where you have baby hairs or whatever. It gives it a natural appearance because that's the way the hair actually grows in the front. Okay, another thing, if you're a beginning ventilator, when you're working with human hair, well, I'm going to just take the end of it here so you can see. When you're working with human hair, you fold over just, you know, 2 inches, and you're working with that little spot, and, you know, that keeps it from tangling against itself. And you literally hold the loop like this with one hand. When you're working with synthetic hair, you're folding it in half. It makes no sense to make a loop because it's just going to get tangled in the middle since it's a long strand of hair. I usually put my finger right here, bring it down, so I still have a loop, but it's on both sides. That way I can control the synthetic hair better. And I'll show you what I mean. Instead of holding real tight in one hand, I just literally open my finger, put the loop there. This is an exaggerated format that I'm showing you, but yeah. I literally just hook the hair onto the hook. That's what I was trying to say. I release this side while I pull this side, so that way the tension doesn't, you know, become too much and break the strand of hair. And then I pull it taut, and every now and then I give that a smoothing. Yeah. Excuse me. I've been having allergy attacks all week. I also have a COVID test I have to do on Sunday because someone I know has been exposed and tested positive. And since I was hanging around, that means it's possible I've been exposed. And I have over a week's worth of food here. I have cookies, I have potato chips, I have much coffee, and I can very easily isolate in place without a problem. I'm kind of isolating now, but if I test positive, then I'll isolate for a full 10 days. But right now it's not required. It's just, the responsible thing to do until I find out for sure. Yeah. And I also have a full kit of resin in there. I have, oh, my light went off. I have this project. I have a whole bunch of things I could do to entertain myself. I spend a lot of time alone on purpose anyway, so isolating and quarantining and all that's no big deal to me because I like being by myself. And in fact, that's caused issues in a couple of relationships because I like being by myself and they wanted to be with. And it's like, yeah, tomorrow we'll schedule something. And because there are times when I just can't be bothered. It's like, no, you're cool and everything, but go away. And that sounds rude, but that's just me. I'm OCD, I'm a xenophobe, which means I really don't like being around people, especially strangers. And every now and then, I need my space, and if someone's not willing to honor that, they gotta go. So yeah, that causes problems. Some of the most successful relationships in my life was, okay, I'm working on a project, you got your football game, see you in a few hours. Oh, I want you to go to the game with me. Nah, take your boys, take your homeboys, I'll be over here doing this, So basically, it was like, okay, I'm going to hang out with the fellas. Okay, fine, don't come back drunk. So, that's how that works. But, okay, I've been with you for the whole day. Now I want to be with you for another 3-4 days at a time with no breaks in between. Get out of here with that. Like I said, I like being alone. I've always liked being alone. It's not some new thing. Alrighty then. Oh, that's another thing. When you're working with human hair, I basically use that amount, not a lot at a time. When I'm working with synthetic hair, I just have a big loop, because if synthetic hair tangles, which it will if you just look at it too hard, I just brush it out, and whatever's left on the brush, I can throw that away. With human hair, you don't want to deal with, constant tangles or whatever. You actually don't have to. But if you get too much at a time, when you're pulling the knots through, it can gather up and cause a tangle, and human hair is expensive. So instead of taking the extra and tossing it like you would synthetic hair, because it doesn't matter, with human hair you have to hackle it or put it through a draw card and, you know, get all that hair back to Remy and save it so that way you can reuse it. Let me find my draw card so I can show you what I mean. It must have fell off my bed. Ugh. Anyway, I'll show you a draw card later, unless I put it over here. Basically, it's a card that's got stainless steel hooks on one side, hooks on the other side. You go like this. You can use it for differentiating between lengths, like when you have hair that's on a track, that you cut the track off, and some of it's this long, some of it's this long, and some of it's this long. You sandwich it in the draw card, you pull the longest layer, the shorter layers will stay back, and that way you can separate the layers without having to put it through a hackle. A hackle is this great big block of stainless steel things, and you literally go like this to blend the hair, to separate the hair, so forth and so on. But I have grandkids, and a hackle is a dangerous thing to have around, especially if the kids are going to be in your house or whatever. A draw card is flat, so if they was to pick it up or whatever, they're holding something flat that's nothing sticking out unless they separate it. By the time one of them was to try to get to it to separate, I've already spotted them and it's like, give me that, you know what I mean? So yeah. Plus, hackles are dangerous to, you know, the adult in the room if they don't know what it is or how to handle it, or if they decide, oh, I'm tired, let me, the thing will poke a hole straight through you. And I am clumsy. I was clumsy before the strokes, and I'm more so after. I still have issues with the right side of my body just randomly deciding it's not going to work, which is why I have a rollator. If I feel myself getting that, well, dead feeling, or like the neuropathy that comes on one side, or I think I'm gonna fall, I can sit down really quickly on the rollator. Or I can just brace myself, lock the brakes, and that keeps me from falling. But when you have, you know, well, I had a partial paralysis, and now it's like I can walk and stuff again, but every now and then that side of my body just does that throwback thing. And yeah, you don't want stuff that's pointy and sharp where you're going to be sitting or laying or squatting or whatever. So yeah. I have much to go. When I get right about here, I'm going to do about this much in the front. Well, no, actually to here. It's going to be like a closure. And then this part, when it gets right here, and then it'll be a little section, and then fill in the gap. That way I can control how the hair lays, because the way I do it, I don't, like I said, I don't have sections, but when I look at my scalp, when I comb it down, the hair literally goes like that. Well, kind of like a star pattern. So that's the way I'm going to ventilate it, you know. But yeah, this is what I do. And sometimes I pop a strand. But yeah. tell me how your day's going. I would love to know. And what do you do as a hobby that basically keeps you busy for hours at a time? I mean, when I work on resin, that's relatively quick. It's like, okay, 3 minutes to mix, 5 minutes to let it settle, another mix, add some color or whatever, pour it into whatever the mold is, do a swirl or whatever you're going to do, and then you let it rest for 3 days. And if you happen to have another mold and the inkling to make another project, you know, it's like 30 minutes, boom, you're done, now it rests, and then you gotta wait. And if you needed something to entertain yourself beyond that, that's when you switch to your other hobbies, like knitting or, well, I'm going to go back to learning how to crochet. When I was a kid, I actually learned how to crochet before I learned how to knit. Now I've got 30-some years knitting experience, but I started crochet first and I just couldn't get it right. Tried to make a hat, it was flat. My mom asked me, how come the doily had a pom-pom on it? I had to tell her it was a hat. And she said, then make another one so that way we have a set, because, you know, doilies come in two. So when I tried to make a doily, that she was a hat. I couldn't get the shaping right. I couldn't get the increases and decreases right. When I picked up a pair of knit needles, boom, it was just natural. It was like half the stuff I made I didn't even have a pattern for. I just instinctively knew how to make it. I knew when I need to add stitches, when I need to take away stitches. Basically, you cast on however many stitches you think you're going to need, and if you're wise, which I became, you, especially if you want to make something twice, you take notes and write down what you did, how you did it, when you changed something, so forth, so on, so that way the next time you went to make it, you could do it exactly the same way you did the first time. Just change the color, the yarn, what type of yarn, if you need to change gauges, because basically your yarn, the size of your needle is determined by type of yarn. If you want real big stitches, you have to have a bulky yarn and a big needle. If you want really teeny stitches, you needed a different yarn, like a double weight or fingering weight and a smaller needle. That's how that works. So yeah. And this I just do. I don't have to think, I don't have to plan. All the planning I did when I got the wig cap, whether it's a wig cap I've made or a wig cap I bought. This is a pre-made. I just take a crayon and I draw in the pertinent details. So that way, the only thing I have to do is ventilate. It's really soothing. And I can go relatively quickly. I don't go as quick as some of my friends. And I'm not in anybody's hurry. This is just a fun hobby. It's a useful hobby because I can either wear the wigs or sell them. Mostly I wear them. I make closures for people, you know, stuff like that, but basically it just gives me something to do with my spare time, of which I have much. There's a tangle. Hold on, gotta resolve that. See what I mean by synthetic tangles very easily. Yeah. Give me 1 second. There we go. Also, sometimes the ends are scraggly and you have several ends that are just way too long. I don't even worry about doing a blunt cut or whatever. I just cut that off. There's a reason for that. Crochet braid hair is usually about 40 inches long, so when I fold it in half, it's still 20 inches long. Most of my wigs are 18 inches and under, so when it's this long, if I was to put this on right now, this would be down the middle of my back. I don't want anything down the middle of my back. My real hair used to be that long, and when it was wet and I let it shake, it was a bush this big. And that's fine because that means it hung out this. But when it was down and straightened, it got caught in car doors. It got, I mean, it was just a headache to maintain, and then it was heavy. So I cut my hair right about here, and I've left it there ever since. I mean, look. A lot of people think my hair is shorter than it is, but yeah, my hair is actually shoulder length. But there's this wonderful thing called shrinkage. If you got curly hair, your hair can shrink from anywhere from 35% to 50% of its actual length. Some people, their hair shrinks 75%. And then when they straighten it or whatever, people think their hair grew overnight. And, you know, you hear terms like, oh, you got magic hair. Now I just got curly hair. So, yeah. And I usually encourage my shrinkage. It's like you wet your hair, you know, when you wash it with warm water, it curls, you know, a little bit. If you automatically put cold water directly behind, you know, it being, okay, you put warm to hot water in your hair and basically it'll stretch, and then you put cold water and it's like a shock effect, it shrinks. So yeah, if I want my hair to shrink even more than it does, that's what I do. I think I made a video on that at some point in time. But this is how I flatten out the knots. Instead of one at a time, I just do them all at the same time. And as you can tell, that gives a very natural effect. I don't know if I can get close enough and have it actually focus. Let's see, that's strand by strand. And that was a quick 20 minutes, wasn't it? What did I do with the strand? Ah, there it is. And see what I do. Usually, when I, you know, grab the hair, I pull off this much, about like that, fold it half, and that's what I ventilate for one section. That usually takes me about 20 minutes. That's how thick that one was. And now look at it, it's almost gone. So then I'll go to the next section, next section, next section. But I do that because that way every time I run short on the hair, that's time to stretch my fingers, you know, shake my wrist, and go like this, massage, because I have carpal tunnel and sometimes, and I have OCD, and like with knitting and with ventilating and stuff that's using your hands, if you get too intense with it, you look up and all of a sudden your hands are cramping and you're going, how come that's happening? It's like, hello, you've been doing this for 6 hours straight without a break. So basically, working in small loops gives me an automatic break. When I run out of hair, it's time to go to the bathroom, go get a juice, go get some cookies or snack, or watch TV, or answer phone calls, or do something else, or go to sleep, or whatever. If I have errands to run, you know, that's a good stopping point. So basically, I have about 30 strands left on that, which means that'll be when I take a break. You know, and usually when I take a break for about 30 minutes or 40 minutes, sometimes an hour, sometimes I just take the whole day and not do it again, but you know, it depends on my mood. A lot of this is mood based. I felt like ventilating, so I started ventilating. When I feel like stopping, I stop. When I was making closures, people go, how long does that take you? And I said, oh, give me a week. Depending on the closure, I can do a closure in about 10 hours. You know, 4x4. But let's think about that. You're doing it strand by strand, and sometimes that's not real good for your posture, and your hands will cramp up or whatever. Or if you just decide, okay, I got this to do today, I got that to do today, so forth and so on, and somebody's going, but you said you'd be done in 4 hours. So now they got your hands out going, where's my stuff? And you're going, oh, I'm not finished yet. But if I say, give me a week, then they're not expecting it for a week. So if it takes me 4 hours, it takes 4 hours. If it takes me 10 hours, it takes 10 hours. If it takes me 3 days, it took me 3 days. Depending on when I start and stop. So, yeah. I have some friends that can make a full lace wig, like the one I'm working on here. Full lace, start to finish, no gaps in between, in 10 days. And I'm like, what are you doing? Working 10 hours a day? Sometimes 12. And I was like, okie dokie. You know, because theoretically speaking, it should take about 40 hours to make a full lace wig. But that's assuming that you're working straight through. Nobody's going to work straight through. Frankly, after 24 hours doing this, I would be blurry-eyed. Just doing regular everyday activities, by the time you hit, say 10, 12 hours, I'm looking for dinner, I'm looking for rest, I'm looking for a nap. I don't do anything straight through. You know. So, yeah. So you have to break it up into time increments. There we go. And that's how I do it. I've had people ask me a lot. Well, it would help if you were actually on the camera so you could see. And this is a full lace wig cap without a stretch panel. Excuse me. So this part doesn't actually pull up like the power mesh. It does have some give, but it's not a stretch panel. This is literally fitted. This is a 22 inch. I have one that's a 24 inch or a large, depending on what I'm going for. This is the one for a 24 inch. As you can tell, it has markings already on it because I coated the mannequin head with Eileen's Tacky. That allows me to stick pins through it, but not get the ventilation hook through it. So that way when I'm working, I don't have to worry about catching the fabric of the canvas block along with the wick cap. And that has happened. That's why people put plastic bags or excuse me, paper under their well, they put the canvas block, then they put paper or plastic, and then they put the wig cap on it or the lace, so that way they don't snag the hair into the fabric of the block. Well, it's easier to put a coating on there, so that way the needle glances off of it and only catches the lace and the hair. And because it's a coating that's slightly flexible, I can stick a pin through there all day long. See? No problem. But that coating is still solid. So that's why I do that. There we go. So thanks for hanging out with me while I was ventilating. This has been People7 on Twitter and YouTube. Almost done. People elsewhere on the internet. My soaps look at PurpleButterfly-soaps.myshopify.com. My blog is located at PurpleButterfly-people.blogspot.com. I'm People7 on Twitter and YouTube, and People elsewhere on the internet. Yup. And this section is almost done, and then I'm going to take a break. But every now and then I get on a roll, and when it's time for a break I forget to sign off, so I just did. But almost done with this section. Then I'm going to smooth it and brush it. Braid up the part that I just did. And then wrap it around the, wrap it around the canvas block and encase it in the stocking cap that I got here. So that way it's out the way while I work on the next section, whenever that might be. So, yeah. And I usually go from left to right. When I go from right to left, I can do it, but it, as you can tell, sometimes get tangled on my bracelet, and it's annoying to take off your jewelry just to do, you know, a hobby and then put it back on. So, yeah. Ooh, excuse me. Dinner's trying to repeat. I had a poplar meal that I usually have, beef and broccoli, but this time it was a different brand. So instead of coming with rice, it was just the beef and broccoli, but a whole lot more seasonings. It was more savory. The beef was kind of like roast beef instead of sliced beef. And there was more broccoli to it. I guess they did that to make up for the fact that the rice was missing. sometimes broccoli has a burpee effect. That's just the easiest way to say it. In other words, it gives me gas. And not in a musical way, just burps, you know. It's not like there's beans or whatever. But I could definitely tell the difference between the two brands. But given a choice, I will still buy that brand again because it simply tasted better. Just like somebody knew about spices. The brand I usually get tastes more like Mongolian beef and broccoli as opposed to American beef and broccoli. There is a difference. By the way, just because that came up before, when I said I was using a Korean needle and I have a German needle and I have an Asian needle, I'm not being racist. That's actually the name of the product. You know, you could say I want a ventilating needle and somebody would say, well, which one? An Asian, a German, or a Korean? That's because wherever the German needle was created, somebody called it German needle, and apparently that's the style you get in Germany. So that's the name it took on. Somebody else came up with a different style hook, and it's like, well, where does this come from? Asia. Okay, it's an Asian needle, and then the new style is a combination between German needle, which has a long, slender hook, and an Asian needle, which has a short hook. The Korean needle has a long hook, but, well, a long shank rather, and a short hook. The German needle has a long shank, and the hook kind of goes like a scoop instead of a corner. So basically, they each have their purposes. Like if you want to work fast, like you're using an Asian needle, a German needle, but you want the precision of an Asian needle, then you grab a Korean needle and you get the best of both worlds. For example, I've done all this. I started working on this wig less than a month ago. It usually takes me 3 months to make a wig, and with these particular needles, I just literally zipped right on through, and this is the last strand of hair. So yeah, this has been People7 on Twitter, YouTube, People elsewhere on the internet. My soaps located Purple Butterfly -soaps.myshopify.com. My blog is located at purplebutterfly-people.blogspot.com. And y'all stay blessed and stay tuned, and yeah, that's how much I just did. Y'all stay blessed, stay tuned. Bye now. Let me just braid this on out the way right quick. I'll show you that process too, because when you braid long hair, the rules are slightly different. There we go. And then I wrapped it around, anchor it out the way with the wig cap. And that takes me to a break. Stay blessed, stay tuned. Bye now. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Yeah.